What's up, my friends? It's Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and I think I have told you this about me before, but when I was a kid and I would go to camp, I absolutely hated being late. I felt like if I was even 20 minutes late for camp and most of my cabin was already there, they would already have gelled and made their connections, and they would all get to know each other. And I'd be the weird outsider with the poorly positioned bunk for the whole week because I wasn't there in the early game to stake out my space socially and in the whole pecking order, the whole thing. And indeed, I found that the weeks that we were on time or even early went way better than the weeks where I was the last guy there. It's like that badge sticks on you a little bit. And in fairness, it was probably mostly self-inflicted because of my own paranoia and social frailty as a kid. Not anymore. I don't even worry about social things at all. I'm fine. I'm an adult. I'm a man. I have a beard. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't need people's approval. I don't care if you listen or not, Dad. But in this passage in Matthew 20, I could totally see how we got a weird social dynamic shaping up here because you got day work in the vineyard camp going on, and this landowner goes out and gets the pick of the litter early in the game at 6 a.m. and he hires a bunch of people and he's like, come on out and work at camp, and strikes a deal with them. He's going to pay them a day's wage. That's a good deal. And he's like, well, let's go get some more people because we got some things we need to get done today and we need to hustle. So he goes back out there at 9 and noon and 3, and he just keeps hiring people apparently under the same deal, which is I'm just going to pay you whatever's right. And people are like, you seem credible. That's good enough. But then the 11th hour, it's like literally, figuratively a metaphor for the last minute to go out and do something. He goes back out and he hires even more people. Well, throughout the day, these people who've been working, they've got memories together. They got some good laughs about the time that they picked some grapes, but Kyle knocked over that whole bucket and they had to scramble to pick it up before the 3-second rule expired. And then they went to lunch and Mel sat on Terry's sandwich for a second. And Terry was like, don't sit on my sandwich. And Mel was like, I'm really sorry. But then they got into a little scuffle, but then they were both like, my bad. And they ended up sharing the sandwich that Mel brought in the first place, which I thought was a really classy thing. And then in the afternoon, it's getting hot and they're all a little bit tired and nobody's really talking. And then Braden just starts giggling and everybody's like, what? And it's like, remember that thing with the sandwich at lunch? And everybody starts laughing again. It's great. And then about 5 p.m., here come these guys and they're skinny and weak and they don't really look like they've been working at all day. And they roll in there and they're like, hi, we got hired to work or whatever. What do you want us to do? Like, I don't know. It's just kind of a bummer for them because they're not going to get any of the inside jokes. They're probably going to have to stand all the way at the end of the line where they don't really get to talk to people. And the people who've been there more of the day who are at the end of the line, they're going to want to talk to people who are closer into the middle of the line, who they have fun war stories with. It's kind of a bummer for them. But in addition to that social disadvantage, there's also this question that's probably lingering around. And everybody can feel the question. It's like, who's going to get paid what? Like, what are these guys even going to get? Why are you here? It's not even worth the gas money. You're going to make like $1 with the amount of time we still have to work. But whatevsies, they're still there because, verse 6, about the 11th hour, he, that's the landowner, went out and found still others standing around, and he asked them, why have you been standing here all day doing nothing? Because nobody's hired us, they answered. And they sort of expect some kind of lecture or judgment or something about well, I don't know if you've been here the whole time. I don't remember seeing you, or well, maybe you didn't get hired for a reason, you chumps. But instead, it's like, yeah, okay, good enough. So he, the landowner, said to them, okay, you also go and work in my vineyard. Oh, that's it? That was the entire entrance exam? It's just, you were willing? Okay, good enough. Let's get cracking then. Awesome. So in verse 8, when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first. Now it's getting weird and tense because everybody's lining up in the reverse order that they were hired, and they're looking back up the line, and maybe the guy all the way in the end who got hired first can't totally see what's being handed off, but he can hear that high-pitched, well-traveling sound of clinking coins. He's like, that actually sounded like kind of a lot of money. And he starts thinking, if that guy got paid that much, I am going to make bank today. Verse 9, the workers who were hired about the 11th hour came out and each received a denarius. Whoa! They each got a full day's wage for, I don't know how soon the sun was going down this time of year, but it's a little closer to the equator. It's a little ways north, vineyard. Maybe this is late summer or something. I don't know, maybe they worked a couple hours, maybe. So when those came who were hired first, They expected to receive more, but each one of them also received a denarius. Now look, I understand their position here. They feel like they're special. They got picked first because they brought the most value to the landowner. They did kick butt work all day long. They're sweaty, they're stinky, they're tired. They're probably not just greedy jerks. Like, they're probably providing for other people, and they're in a moment in life, a place in life where they're swapping time and energy for money. So I get why they would want to be paid as well as they possibly could. But at the same time, they got told they're going to get a day's wage, and they got a day's wage. Unsurprisingly, in verse 11, it says, when they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. These men who were hired last worked only 1 hour. They said, I guess 2. It's right there in the text. It's 1. And you've made them equal to us who've borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day. I broke my back slaving over a hot vineyard to make this thing work for you, and you don't appreciate what I get it. I've given these kind of speeches. Everybody's given these kind of I'm not appreciated speeches. And look, sometimes they're merited because sometimes employers are jerks. Oftentimes I think employers are not jerks as well. You try to work for ones that you like and you find to be trustworthy. I understand that sometimes we take jobs we don't like, and sometimes it's really difficult to square our desire to work out the contract we made with the unlikability of the people who are on the other side of that contract. But this is not that situation. These people made a deal with eyes wide open, and then they were compensated exactly as promised. Now, if it's the other way around and they get cheated or their resources get redistributed to somebody else for no apparent reason or because of the lack of attention to detail on the part of the landowner, then they have a legitimate gripe because the contract has been breached, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So then the landowner answers them, but he answered one of them, friend, I'm not being unfair to you. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the man who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I'm generous? And some of you are chuckling right now because we don't live in the 1st century AD. We live in the 21st century AD. And depending on what country you are sitting in as you listen to this, you're thinking, no, you don't have the right to do what you want with your own money because all or most money is shared property of the state. So, no. There's business law and unions and all kinds of regulations that say you can't just do whatever you want with your own money, and you might actually be in violation of some kind of union contract here. Look, you just got to flush your right now contemporary assumptions about the relationship between the state and the business owner regarding economics and picture something much, much more wild and free that you had going on in the 1st century. And here, even without looking outside the text of the Bible, it's easy to see the rhetorical assumption of Matthew, of Jesus, of the landowner in the story as being, well, everybody knows that you have the right to do as a landowner with your money, whatever you want to do with your money. But that aside, now we're getting close to the punchline of this whole thing. Remember, this all started with Peter worrying about succession. What's going to happen when Jesus is gone? Implicitly, what Peter's expressing to Jesus back in chapter 19 that kicked off this whole parable is like, well, you told us you're going to die. And so we've depended on you for our security to this point. But then I was thinking in the back of my head, like maybe we could just use money or something because that can also provide security. But then this rich kid comes up to you and he's like, I want eternal life. And you told him to sell all his stuff. So what are we supposed to do? What's going to be left for us when this is all over? And that sends Jesus into this teaching about many who are first will be last and many who are last will be first. It's cryptic. It's difficult to understand. This parable we're looking at right now is supposed to help us understand that cryptic statement better. And like I just said a second ago, I think now we're getting a little bit closer as we see the people who are in early, the early adopters, they are dissatisfied with the deal that they made with the landowner, because now that landowner is propping up people who came in last, and it doesn't seem like they have earned it to nearly the same degree. Maybe you're sniffing where this thing is going. We will unpack it further tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.